Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. Welcome to the show. Boy, do we have an exciting guest for you. Let me introduce you all to Spring Washam. She's a well-known teacher, author, and visionary leader based in Oakland, California. Spring is considered a pioneer in bringing mindfulness-based meditation practices to diverse communities. She's one of the founding teachers at the East Bay Meditation Center located in downtown Oakland, California. She's a member of the Teachers Council at Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Northern California, where she was trained for over a decade. She's also a shamanic practitioner and has studied indigenous healing practices since 2008. She's the founder of Lotus Vine Journeys, a one-of-a-kind organization that blends indigenous healing practices with Buddhist wisdom in South America. Her writings and dharma teachings have appeared in many online journals and publications. She currently teaches meditation retreats and leads workshops and classes worldwide. She's with us today to discuss her newest book, The Spirit of Harriet Tubman, Awakening from the Underground, which combines direct transmissions of Harriet's messages with insightful explorations of her life and legacy. Wow, that is quite a biography. I am so excited to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you both.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about your journey? I mean, you're so young and you've studied for so long and you've done so much. Tell us how you got into ancestor work, shamanism, Buddhism, teaching, and then we'll move into your awesome new book.
Yeah, well, I did start very young, I think, on the path of meditation. I was in my late teens. And I think I always had an interest in suffering and why people suffered so much. I think it starts in our family of origin. And we're like, why is this going on? What is happening to the people? And so and just traumas and pain and suffering. And so at an early age, I got very interested in psychology and sort of self-help. And then in my early 20s, I got very, very involved in meditation and started practicing first in the Hindu tradition and then insight meditation. And I think everything just opened up from there. I never planned on being a teacher. I never planned on writing. These things just happen to you. It's like a step, one step, then two steps, and there you go. But mostly everything came out of deep meditation practice. I spent years going on long retreats in silence, and that led to me starting a community in Oakland, a meditation center, and then teaching residential retreats, and then also exploring suffering and trauma is what led me into working in South America. Got interested in plants as a way to deepen the healing process and heal trauma. And then it's like everything just evolves from there.
I think that's how you know you're on the path, when everything just evolves, as you're saying, step by step. You're not forcing anything, you're not chasing anything, you're just allowing it all to happen for you. That's beautiful.
Exactly. I never tried to write. I always felt like these things just came to me, and I was always kind of almost reluctant, like, no, wait, I'm not ready for this. And then the universe has another idea, like, yes, you are. Here you go. Here's your assignment. And you just got to keep saying yes. You're forced to say yes, and some part of your heart always wants to say yes.
That's beautiful. And I love the transition from the meditation into the shamanic work, into the plant medicine. And right now, everything is very geared towards healing trauma, healing grief, releasing, so we can come together in unity on the planet. Do you feel that with your shamanic practices, it helped you become a clearer channel while you were writing? Because with that work, you do go to different realms, you go into different frequencies and dimensions. Do you feel that it opened you up more for being able to write this beautiful book?
Absolutely. I think that, it's like every stage of our lives feels like a bit of a preparation. You go through these intense experiences and these huge healing processes. And on the other side of them, there is more wisdom, there's more clarity, there's more understanding. And then naturally, it just kind of goes out into the world, into the community. My writing career, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways because I never tried to pursue books. Publishers started knocking on my door. I used to try to get out of it, and I have a third contract with Hay House, my publisher. And I tell writers the key is don't want to write, and it'll come to you. So I don't think my road with writing is conventional. I don't think so.
It's because it's meant to be. Okay, so here you are. You've got this thriving business, this beautiful seeker's path. You're busy. You're doing all your work and teaching, and then Harriet Tubman shows up. Can you tell us about this and what that meant to you?
Yeah, and I'll say first of all, I'm still in awe of what has happened with Harriet Tubman and myself, this great ancestor of ours. I always say Harriet's belongs to everybody. You know, yes, I'm African American and there's a connection, but Harriet's beyond that. It's an ancestor that belongs, it's an American ancestor, it's a historical ancestor. But I was as surprised as you were when Harriet showed up in my reality, my consciousness, my heart. And it was May of 2020 when the whole world was erupting early in the pandemic. And oh my God, the society and fear and terror and violence and everything was happening. And Harriet showed up. I wasn't obsessed on Harriet Tubman before that. I'd watched the movie like many people in 2019. This beautiful movie came out, and I was like, oh yeah, Harriet Tubman, great. Who doesn't honor a being like that? But it had caught me so by surprise when she showed up first in a very, very powerful dream. And from there, it began to get stronger and stronger every day. This connection, this conversation, this the energy, and one step led to another step. It's kind of a magical story, and I write about it in the first 2 chapters of the book, so people know like this is exactly how this relationship unfolded.
That's exactly what it is, a relationship. Thank you for explaining that. I love that. I love those first 2 chapters.
I really chuckled because in the beginning, you tried everything known possibly to get out of writing this book. When Harriet came to you, it's like, I don't think you want me. I think you're looking for somebody else. But then the persistence, and once you surrendered and said, okay, I'm in. But could you share a little bit? Because I think that's a really interesting part of your story, is that you really had a dark night of the soul pretty much in order to agree to write this book.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were already going through a lot, in society at that time, and so many of these topics about history and oppression and what happened in the country and what was happening now, so much of the past relates to the present and the future. Um, but exactly, it all started when Harriet started coming to me in dreams and I was thinking about her. And then, like so many of us, I put up a Zoom class, right? Like maybe other people are talking to Harriet Tubman, Is this something collective that's happening? And it felt like the answer was yes, because hundreds of people came onto the Zoom class and they sold hundreds of tickets, and it went viral, this event. And unbeknownst to me, my publisher was one of the sea of faces in the Zoom room, and said, oh my God, you have to write about this. And absolutely, I was like, oh, I'm not a historian. No, 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 no. I can't write about Harriet Tubman. Are you kidding? I write spiritual books that are, I was working on another book at that time, and they were like, wait, stop, write this. And I did try to get out of it because it felt too important. And I worried that I would somehow not be able to convey the depths of an ancestor like this. So I was terrified, and I did try to get out of it for months and battled myself, and then I surrendered.
And the beautiful part, though, is watching your relationship with Harriet unfold throughout the book. And she becomes a dear part of who you are, and you can feel the progression of energy through the book becoming stronger. And I don't know if it was an aspect of trust or an aspect of surrender, again, that word, but it's absolutely beautiful the way it unfolds.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to
thank
share
you.
I want to share a quote. You said, You said that Harriet said that she had chosen you to deliver her messages. And of course, as you just said, you were afraid. And she said to you, yes, child, you and I made this promise to each other a long time ago. We both signed on to the deal, and now the moment has come. Why do you feel Harriet chose you? Do you think that you guys were connected in a past life? Do you think that you were just the right person at this time?
That's such a question that I ask myself a lot. I think that my years of, I always had a lot of mystical experiences on long meditation retreats. So I felt always like had some ability to open to the ancestor world, the spirit world. I always felt like we live in a vast universe and it's bigger than what we can see with just this 3D mind body experience, that we're way more than this. I always knew that. And the shamanic retreats and all the journey work and living in the jungle had opened me even farther to that. So I knew when Harriet said that there was a door that I had opened from time to time. I think Harriet had some bigger wisdom behind it, because I know for the rest of my life, I'm signing on to speak about Harriet Tubman and the spirit of Harriet Tubman. For the rest of this life, this book, I'm sure in conversation will come up with any interview. And so, in a way, it was preparing myself for a life mission. Like for the rest of this life, you're not just writing this, but you will speak about this, you'll share about this. It kind of goes with me as a teacher, and telling stories and sharing stories is my primary way of sharing dharma, sharing wisdom. I'm a storyteller, so now I have this story that feels so bigger than me, bigger than anything I've experienced thus far. Who knows what the future brings, but I'm open, I am open to just being used for a higher purpose, if that's what spirit wants.
Wow, that is life changing. I like the way you worded that. You're taking this on for the rest of your life. That's so true.
This feels very much though, and again, as it unfolds in the book, about compassion and the fact that the seeds were planted during a time of horrific unrest in the world, in our country, in the US, and that you were able to channel that through. And I just want to share something that you wrote really quickly, because it's really, really, I went back to this little bit over and over and over. She writes, vows are aspirations, intentions we hold in our consciousness, noble seeds of love planted in the ground of our hearts. In every spiritual tradition, this quality of compassion is cherished. It's the ache we feel in our hearts when we encounter someone in distress. It's not pity, it's care. And it comes with a heartfelt wish to help. And you elaborate on that, but then a little bit, Harriet's response to that was what brought tears to my eyes, because you do start to recognize Harriet's voice throughout this, and you know that it's coming through you, not from you. And she writes, child, the energy of great compassion is boundless, far greater than our mental prisons. It's the quality of the heart, and it's in all of us, but most people can't access it because it's buried so deep. Look inside, then cultivate a strong aspiration to ease the pain of others wherever you can. It builds slowly from there. I mean, that is just so beautiful. Your
Aw.
words, but also bringing through, because I yammer on a lot about the collective energies, how we all have to raise our vibration to help other people.
Yes.
And this to me is the epitome of that, of coming together in union,
Mm.
and it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah,
So
that
thank you.
was a very special, thank you. That was a very special moment. Anytime there was sort of like a Q&A where I could ask something and felt like I could get a clear guide, a clear guidance on the topic. And I feel, yeah, it's very profound, this kind of love. Yeah, that moves people to this kind of life that Harriet Tubman led. That was it was all compassion based. And a lot of people, when they see Harriet Tubman on an image, they feel afraid. I did too initially, like, oh my God, she's so fierce. She's appeared wrathful in a wrathful form. But this love that would surround me, it would overwhelm me, as I wrote about, like my whole circuits would be blown. It would take me days to recover in the early days where I would have these encounters. I would be shaking for 3 days after a session, and over time it got easier. But really, it's love. It's a tremendous love that emanates from this spirit. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. And I find it interesting that she first appeared to you in a dream, because throughout her life, dreams guided her. And I always have wondered, I don't know, to me, reading her story, I feel like she was psychic. And I don't know if it's, remember when she was a younger child and she had that traumatic hit to her head. You read about so many people who have these TBIs and they become, suddenly psychic. And I wonder if that connection to dreams and her being psychic and you waking up to this, is that a link for you two? Did she share anything about that from her own experience?
Yeah, I think Harriet in her life hid a lot of her, I think, abilities. She disclosed what was important to disclose, but throughout her life, she had talked about this stream of a conversation with God and this inner guidance, and that, from her head injury, she had seizures, narcolepsy, migraines, and would pass out at different moments. But she would always say, when I did go unconscious, I was traveling and getting information that I needed. And as soon as she awoke, she would know exactly where to go, exactly what needed to happen. They needed to shift and go a different direction. She seemed to be completely clairvoyant. And I think that's why, in some ways, she was so fearless, because I believe she saw the future. She saw, okay, I'm going to sign up and be a general in the war and do all these things. I'll survive. I know what's going to happen. So I think she had this ability and spoke about this throughout her life, knowing the future, knowing, in some of her first biographies, she would show up at different places and say, you have a package for me. And the person would be like, wow, I just got something just 5 minutes ago. And she's like, exactly, thank you. Right. It's like there was this knowing, but it was cloaked in all this humility, I think, and the fact that no one would listen to a formerly enslaved woman who couldn't read or write. That's no one's idea of a great spiritual teacher. And she says that often, that I was never the idea of that, but now I can kind of unveil myself because consciousness is ready for a deeper truth about who I really am. I'm more than just a slave that was born in Maryland in 1925. My spirit is bigger than that. So I was learning all the way through this book. I am still learning. I will continue to understand this connection more and more as I continue growing. It's just like a never ending story for me.
Oh, beautifully said.
The way you speak of this, it changed you forever, didn't it? Like this experience.
Absolutely. Oh, I mean, it was before this and after this. And as I mentioned, it opened so many doors into my understanding of who I am in the world, consciousness, the world far beyond this world, and different dimensions of reality and existence and soul contracts and, previous lives and who we are in this life. And yeah, it definitely, I understood these things, but it just went far deeper into more embodying them, more experientially feeling. There's a difference between going, spirits exist, and then having like a kind of connection that you're like, oh my God,
Right.
Is this really happening? Yeah, it just changes you the truth of life.
It does. Years ago, I lived in this small town and I had a friend, and he said when they had first moved to this town that they had rented a home while they were looking for something, and it was a safe house on the Underground Railroad. It was right on and it was this beautiful old house, and he said there were like passageways and there were hidden rooms and there were all these things so that they could protect people that were traveling. And I became so fascinated with how Harriet Tubman was a little button of a woman. I mean, she was tiny, and when you say and strong, but like under 5 feet tall, she's just this little tiny thing. And when you think of the tenacity it would take to pull off what she did, but also to make those connections with people along the route. And I feel like her coming back through you now is exactly what we're trying to do again, is to make those connections and come together in this healing. It is absolutely mind-boggling to me, the correlation between what she did and our times now, but also that she chose to come through with such a strength for you to be able to. And I mean, my goodness, just from your bio, you've traveled the world, you've been you've done all these incredible things. And then, okay, she's the one. We need Spring to step up and share this story.
Well, I'm surprised all the time too. I couldn't, if you would have told me this would have been a couple of years ago, I'd have been like, what? Yeah, plot twist. And I just know that the book itself too is meant to be inspirational. It's meant to bring people together. It's meant to forgive. It's meant to look at history so we understand how we got where we are now. People often don't understand that. And young people, especially, is like, how did we get here? I don't understand the violence. I don't understand the hatred. And so I think by going back, we can understand the present, and also that the energy of the Underground Railroad, the spirits, and they are alive and they're still active, for this freedom for all beings, and I got that sense, and that's really what saved me, I think.
Yeah, that's what I love is there's such a message of hope in this book, but there's also a lot of
Yes.
good insight. I want to share another quote in the chapter where you're taken back in time with Harriet's grandmother, Modesty. Harriet talks about the importance of ancestors, and you write, our ancestors have a much more powerful effect on our lives than we know. The lives of our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents are connected to who we are because they live through us. Can you talk more to our listeners about our ancestors and how we can connect with them today in the present?
Yes, I think this is a very important piece that I want to always talk about, because I feel like on the spiritual path, this actually is a missing ingredient with the work that we're doing. We have so many people doing consciousness raising work, healing work. And I think that because we grow up in this society where we don't understand living lineages, right? In the West, it's like, I'm born, I'm here, I'm alone, I come alone, I walk alone. We have this, we don't think about our great, 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 great grandmother. But the passion and interest in this topic is everywhere. I don't know anyone who hasn't done 1 or 2 DNA tests in the last few years and is tracking where their people are from, but it's deeper than that. You can know where you're from, but it's the energy. Our ancestors are always around us, and there's some work sometimes that we have to do to clear this stuff. When somebody comes to me and they're depressed or they're sad, or, people I meet who come on my retreats, they have everything and they don't understand why they feel suicidal, say. And a lot of this has to do with the family tree, and our ancestors are with us. I use that quote from Maya Angelou because she used to say it so much. I stand as one, but I come as 10,000. She always felt 10,000 ancestors behind her. And I do believe they were there because her power was there. The power of this 10, wasn't just one person speaking. It felt like a whole lineage talking to you or reading to you. It felt like the words and the amplified message. So I think that a lot of us, we could get a lot of benefit from healing our ancestral lineage. And we begin that by connecting. There's work that I think we have to do to make things right. We have to do forgiveness things on behalf of the ancestors. We have to sort out some of those debts karmically, energetically. And when we start to put those things right, I notice that my clients, the guests who come on my retreats, feel a whole renewed sense of well-being, like this weight. So there's a whole area I don't believe that we are exploring that has to do with our ancestral lineage and how to heal it, how to transform it, and then how to open to the power that's there and use that in a conscious way.
How would you suggest people start that process if they come from a family that doesn't tell stories? You know, people who just don't really know who their great grandparents are or where they come from. Maybe that's why we're all getting DNA tests. But how would you
I think
start setting
so.
things right if you don't know what needs to be set right or what needs to be released or healed?
I think it starts with our curiosity. You know, it's important to know where your people are from, where your people were, where is the land they lived on, right? Where your people are buried. This is actually a really powerful place. Where your people lived, what was the language they spoke, what was the cultural norms. So say I'm someone who's from Italy or something, say just an example, and then maybe my family never talks about where we're from, but if I was to go to that land, I would start feeling the ancestors, right? Because it's bigger than just your recent generation. This is your ancestors, they go back 50, 50 cycles of generations that they're alive, and people can begin by just evoking them, making offerings to them, acknowledging them. The realm between this world and the ancestor world is very thin right now. It's like a piece of paper, right? And for those who are more open, can hear, that world is very close at hand because our consciousness is so much higher now, right? So we can see, understand, and develop relationships. So we begin the process just by going, well, where are these people from? Where is their customs? And then I think it's important for us to begin to think of ourselves as the descendants of the carriers of the familiar line, the lineages, where's my mother, my grandmother? We can start simple and begin to ask questions. Where did my great grandmother live? Okay, they were all from this area for hundreds of years. Okay, this is important for me to know. There's connections to who we are today based on that. It's not a karma, terrible karma. No, it's something that we can make things right. And we see a lot of this sort of restorative justice work happening in the South. I've been meeting a lot of people who've been looking at their land, the money that they acquired, and where did it come from? Okay, well, not that we should feel ashamed of it or feel bad, but how did our family get to be? And who was connected there? And what can we make right now? What can we correct? Stories in the family of lies actually create disturbances in our being, in the family, in the ancestor world. I'll tell you one story that I'm in the middle of healing for my family that might make this a little bit more easier for people to understand. So I have my mother's mother committed suicide when my mother was a teenager, and devastated my aunt and my mother. And because they were so upset that their mother committed suicide, they buried her in Los Angeles in an unmarked grave intentionally. They left her name off, so it was as if she doesn't exist. Well, this is a problem. You don't bury dead like that. And so my grandmother often comes through as being very upset and like, no, I lived. I was here. And that kind of anger gets passed down. And we have a lot of that in our family, estrangement, mothers, sons turning against mothers, all kinds of. So right now I'm in the process of getting a new headstone from my grandmother that says, you were alive. It needs to say, we forgive you. And so my mother and my aunt, who held the most pain around, are going through a process of forgiving, and that affects my cousins, the kids, all. I kept saying, you guys are the great grandmothers now. You have to lay down this as the lineage of forgiveness now.
Sends that healing back as well as forward.
Exactly.
And that's the key. What I'm finding with a lot of people I'm speaking with, and a lot of folks that are on the planet right now that have incarnated, are choosing to break those family cycles. They're stepping up and saying, I don't want to carry this shame anymore. I don't want to carry this pain. I don't want to carry this, whatever that may be in that family lineage. And I agree with you, from a shamanic perspective, every single one of us, every part of the human species, we can all go back to roots, a hunter-gatherer society. We all have that earth in us if we go back far enough. And that gives us, I know I keep saying the word unity, but it truly does. And you're right, that
Yeah.
healing is, personally, I think it's exactly why we're here right now.
Absolutely. And I think that this is just an area that we're growing. It's beyond just DNA. People stop
Yes.
at the DNA level and they don't get to the work of what happened with these people. How did they live? What was the confusion and what was the wisdom? It's not just like the confusion we missed out on, but there's wisdom in these lineages that we also might miss out on. So it's about embodying and coming to be a full person. And I invite people who are struggling and can't figure out the roots of it to begin to investigate, and maybe they can begin to put things right and engage their ancestors. And you could do just visualizations where you imagine all your ancestors in a circle around you and praying for peace. What do you need? How can I help? What do I need? What do I need to resolve here for people to be at peace? And it trickles down. It's amazing. It's energy, but it's powerful.
It's very honoring for the
Yeah.
people in spirit, but also for your own personal growth and development.
Yeah, you become more peaceful. That you do these work, you do these things, you make these prayers, maybe you resolve some issues, or you bring people together, or you follow your guidance, right? You follow, okay, find this person. This person needs to be written to. This person needs to be included. This person needs to be acknowledged. You do it, and all of a sudden you're at peace, and you didn't even realize that you weren't at home, the way you might want to feel at home in yourself.
Those were such great examples, and thank you for sharing that personal story, because what a beautiful honoring you're doing for your grandmother. I really appreciate you sharing that. I feel like throughout the book, Harriet Tubman is so positive, even though, we are going through a difficult time in the world right now. She remains positive. Can you tell us a little bit about why she has so much high hopes for all of us, and all of us being able to come together and work together?
I know that was the piece that stood out a lot. Was when I got to the chapter writing about Harriet's life in the war and how she joined the military and fought in the Civil War and was the first woman general to lead her own raids. Was a full soldier. This was like not just a background player. This was someone who went out into the front lines at the right moment. There was such a patriotic energy to Harriet. And I think I saw this in some of the civil rights leaders, Dr. King and some people. They would always say, there's a seed, the soul of America. There's something good worth fighting for here. There's something good, and it doesn't feel like it all the time. You're like, oh my God, is this the soul of, we see all this fighting and politicians and political groups and attacking this group, attacking that group. And we think, oh man, this divide will never heal. But I have to say, I felt this optimism, and it didn't come without a battle though. Harriet was like, there's a looming Civil War-ish energy coming. But the battle now is in the minds of the people. We're enslaved in the mind, right? The prison of hatred and greed and delusion. That's the battle. And she's like, it's an old battle. We've been battling this for a long time. But there was this optimism, because I have so many times have been on the verge, very close to moving to South America. Like, I'm done with North America. And Harriet is like, no, 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 no. And not only that, wants me to now, I feel very encouraging. Move to Georgia, get involved, be closer. And I keep thinking, what? No, I want to run away from this. And it's like, no, don't run away. Be an agent of change. Bring the spirit here. So her patriotism was, I was just mystified by that, actually.
That's amazing. Her patriotism, but also her fearlessness. Like you read
Completely.
everything that she did, and she got all her family out and then she kept going back. And and you're just like, oh, would I have that same courage? It's definitely a moment of honesty with yourself, because what she did again and again and again, not only for her country, but just as you said, for compassion and for freedom, is amazing. So she does feel that this divisiveness, did I hear you correctly, is going to continue a little bit longer until we free ourselves in our mind?
There seems to be, throughout the book, when I was writing, especially toward in 2020, at the end of 2020, I felt like there was a lot of messages about there's a big stirring happening, kind of like another kind of civil war. I don't imagine states as violent as that, but who knows? I don't know. Everything is so surprising what's happening in our world, right? This is the energy of consciousness battling itself. What is this going to be? Are we going to be about unity, freedom, honoring everybody, every child that's born? Are we honoring them? That's the battle now. And also for the earth itself, the consciousness of Mother Earth. Are we going to save it or are we going to destroy it? And so those feel like the bigger, like, whoa, this is about consciousness, right? We'll have to see what happens, but she very much felt like I am back. I'm a general and I'm moving through the mind, and if I have to take birth, I will. But right now I can work through consciousness and help to. And I think this is what she wanted to come back. And the book is really about aligning with people. Like, take me to the people, Spring. I must be with the people, to give them this courage to probably stand up for truth and love, to stand up for unity consciousness, to stand up for human rights, to stand up for people without a voice. And I agree with you. Harriet's courage, I don't understand that fearlessness. It's really beyond. That's why, I really think this was a prophet. This is somebody who saw the future. That's how they could be like that. I see the outcome. All right, let's go into battle. I'll be out in 4 years, or this will happen. I that's the only way I can describe it, is they knew they were protected, because the amount of times Harriet could have died was incalculable.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. Okay, so as I mentioned, my daughter saw me reading the book, and then she picked it up and read it and loved it. And she has a couple of questions for you that aren't as deep as, consciousness and all, but I hope that's okay. She
Oh,
wanted to
yes, I
know.
love this.
Okay, so she wanted to know, okay, her first thing, she says she wanted to know what she looks like when she appears to you, and if she appears to you like full body or if it's in your mind. How is she dressed? And then she said, ask her about this quote. I've often experienced being haunted, you write, and even then I could shake off the spirits around me, but she was not a spirit. She was not haunting. She refused to be shaken off. So how would you describe her if she wasn't a spirit or haunting? That's what my daughter wanted to know.
Well, it was like, Harriet appeared the first night. I write about that a lot in the second chapter, where it was like the task. See, the publisher had come to me and said, write this book. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, you're crazy. Like, you better call Angela Davis, call a historian. I dropped out of college in senior year, business school. No, no, no. So I feel like Harry came at a moment in an undeniable way, right? I had to have something so mind bending that I would have to almost, like, throughout that whole night, I told the story, the conversation went on until the sun came up. So Harriet just appeared. It was obvious that it wasn't a human form. It felt very much like a hologram, like how people make holograms now. Like, I didn't feel that there was a body there. I felt Harriet came in an image that I would recognize. So from some of the commonly pictured, one is from the Smithsonian Institute. They found a young picture of Harriet maybe 15 years ago that blew everyone's mind. These only have the ones of her really old. And then they found this picture and they were like, oh my God, this is Harriet Tubman, when she would have been in her Underground Railroad conductor days. So it just kind of appeared and it got more and more clear. And it appeared she was wearing the clothes that she wore in that time. It was in that era. It wasn't like a fancy new outfit. It was the way that I would be undeniably clear. Like, oh my God. And I think that's, she appears in the way that I think I could perceive it, or how I identified with Harriet. I was reading all these historical books. So she appeared almost as that historical Harriet at that age. And that was the only, maybe only two other times after that, Harriet needed to do that. And that was closer to the end of the book. But mostly after that, because that was such a shock to my system and it took me days to recover from that, it's almost like Harriet's like, I don't even need to do that. The connection is there. Everything then became a conversation almost telepathically with her showing me images. That was a rare occasion when almost like, that's why I said the longitude and latitude, something shifted. She shifted reality in some way. She played with it. And then, like Aborigines call it the dream time, where they're out vision questing and then the ancestor can appear. I felt like she changed the molecular space around us and she could appear in that moment. But she only did that maybe two other times, never as strong as that time. That time she needed me to agree to the task. So it was like full display. This is what's, and then
This is
I
who I
could
am.
kind
This is
of
what we're
release
gonna
it.
do.
Yeah, this is Harriet. This is not, you're not asleep. Because it's easy to be like, this is crazy. It's my mind. This is an ego game. I mean, it all is our minds, but this is the story.
That's a great description, though, of how it does work. Because sometimes when you see spirit, it is like a hologram, and I never really thought of it like that. So thank you. I'll pass that on to my daughter.
Yeah, because they're not in a physical body anymore, so
Right.
they can't, but I think to some people they could appear in I don't know, I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And that has never happened to me before, where a spirit crossed out into my field when there wasn't like a ceremony or some magical thing going on. That's the first time, and probably again, never as powerfully as that time has that happened again. After that, there was like a connection and just like a little bit, but that was like a special occasion, I'll say.
Wow.
That was my question, was, did this open you up? Because a lot of what you're describing is, there's subjective and objective clairvoyance where you'll see it in your mind's eye or you'll see form, and and very rare to see that apparition appear. But I was wondering, has it made you more connected in your other aspects of work with feeling spirit come closer?
I definitely think so. I think it helped refine it because I feel like I always had a connection to spirit, especially when I was doing shamanic work or we're in some kind of ceremonial setting, but that it kind of like blew something open right there. And I think I'm still integrating that. Like, it was such a dramatic experience for my mind. Your mind can't compartmentalize it. It never had the experience of your mind trying to make sense. Is this, what's happening? Wait, this doesn't fit in any, right? It's like going through the library, like trying to find a past experience and it's not finding any really, right? And it's opening something. And I think the point of Harriet was that night was to open some part of my consciousness, and I'm still integrating it. I'm still, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is where do you go from here? Because you've been given this beautiful gift, and I think she calls you a conductor now. It's almost like she passed a baton on to you. So is she still communicating with you, and where are you going to go from here besides Georgia?
I know. Next stop, Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm a California girl, true, tried and true. I have, and I would have never considered moving to the South ever. I just didn't have a thought of it. In fact, I was always like, no, I'm moving South America, not the southern part of the United States. No, thank you. Even though it's beautiful there, and I have a lot of friends there, and I'm not saying anything bad about Southern life. It's just the history scared me, and the violence that was happening in the culture was scaring me away from those parts of the world. But you know, I feel Harriet around me much more, and because I have like kind of grown more, I'm able to be closer to the energy without disruption. before it would disrupt my whole energy body. I couldn't eat. I'd be shaking. I was like really like a power fuse was blown every time that it was so laborious. The first 8 months, I didn't know how to take care of myself and do my sessions because it would send my body, it would send me out of my body sometimes, or I would just be exhausted for 3 days, couldn't hardly move because the energy would go so high and then crash. So now I'm learning how to like swim with it, integrate with it. And so I feel that Harriet is around. I had this crazy idea that it was just the book that would be done. But I really feel like the rest of my life, I will be talking about Harriet Tubman. And I actually feel like now I'm being prepared to do more with the channel. I don't know what is needed because I don't know the future. Maybe, who knows what could happen in a year where we'll be as a society, at least in North America, or what I'll be called on to do or where I'll go. But I do know that I'm much more surrendered than I was before. I'm much more like, I don't want to use the word obedient. That's not really, I'm more like, you ask me and I'll try, Harriet, to fulfill this my agreement. If my agreement, which I'm going to be speaking about Harriet Tubman for the rest of this life, it's a part of my karma now. It's part of my soul contract. And so I'm not sure where it's going to go, but now I'm more surrendered. And if moving to Georgia is part of me fulfilling something to share this work, this consciousness with communities, then I'll go. So I'm just in deep listening. It's not easy. I have my own ideas, like moving to Costa Rica out in the middle of nowhere. But it's like, no, 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 no. You need to be much closer to the action, which, frankly, is challenging. But I don't know. I feel like with Harriet around me, I can climb Mount Everest.
You're fearless too. When you've got her.
Well, I'm nowhere. I'm like not even a 0.5% of Harriet. I always say that. No, no, no. I don't even want to say. I feel like a kindergartner, preschooler learning. I am learning things. Like I'm a learner. So I feel extraordinarily humbled when it comes to Harriet Tubman. I just bow and say, oh my gosh, ancestor, thank you. And these are some shoes that are so big. And that respect grew over time in the writing process. I used to be more haphazard or something with it. And then as these visions and experiences grew, I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. Like my whole energy changed and became much more, respectful and like, whoa, okay. I don't even understand how the depths of this particular being's presence really is, but that I changed over time, being kind of like childlike to being much more, honoring the life of this being and what they contributed and how they are still trying to make contributions.
That really comes across in the book too. You did a great job.
Oh, good. Yeah, it evolved over time.
The timing is just so beautiful. And I was thinking as you were speaking about how incredible it was when Harriet was doing this the first time around. And now how much bigger it is and how much more needs to be done. And how I just love that I would want, it's going to be interesting to see if you're just one of the ambassadors in this and that Harriet is coming through and someone else is going to come through. And I really do. I think this is, as I mentioned before, it changed you forever, but it also, it feels karmic, it feels old, and it feels like a contract that you're honored to fulfill. It's beautiful. So thank you for stepping up.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you both because you really understand this, and I love that I'm on your podcast because you really, I feel that you've read this and you're looking at this material and my hope is that you will feel Harriet in your life, helping you and guiding and giving you that courage. And I think that's, if I could narrow it down, why I believe Harriet's back is to give us this courage. I always see her in a military uniform toward the end of the book. Like, I'm ready to be there with you. You're not alone in this.
Right.
And this is a time of great transformation, as when she was, alive. The country is going through a death and rebirth, and she witnessed so many cycles, and I feel like she's trying to give a transmission of faith and love, courage to everybody.
Oh,
And I am, and for those who are open to it, she's your ancestor.
yeah, I really appreciate how you emphasize that in the book, that everyone can call on her for help, that she's, everyone's
Yes.
there. I love that. I think that's very, very, it's just a good reminder that we have help out there. We have invisible
We
helpers
have
out there.
help.
That's
Yes, we
beautiful.
have help in the unseen world. And I think if we're ever going to grow, we have to tap into them more and more, the unseen world, and the light spirits, and the spirits that are carrying the lamp of liberation and care deeply about um, what's happening on this realm and are with us. And they don't want to see the planet be destroyed. They want to see life continue and evolve in the frequency, and everybody awaken to this unity heart essence that we are underneath it all. So Harriet is definitely here for that and has a vision of that. The length of time this can take, she was very patient. Oh my Lord. And went through many cycles. And I get that too. Like, be patient. This is no, 5 minute journey. This is like a lifetime of realization, understanding, and I just, yeah, I'm glad she's here with me and with all of us. And for those who are open, like your daughter, I hope she visits her and sees, that the interest is right there. I feel like Harriet then starts talking and sharing and giving a kind of transmission of power.
Wow, it's important sacred work. And the book is out with Hay House, so I'm assuming you can find it anywhere, right? All
Yeah,
books.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's officially, you can pre-order it now. It's officially out next Tuesday. So whenever this podcast comes out, it'll be available everywhere. And
Are
yes,
you
I'm
so
very happy.
excited?
I'm excited, and it feels like I've already been here before or something. I don't know. Something feels very familiar to the whole thing. And I'm just like getting ready to talk about it. It'll be Black History Month pretty soon, then Women's History Month, and then on to I think it's a conversation that people are having more and more about Harriet Tubman. I think there's a growing, she's out there, but there's an interest that has been percolating for years now, and more information about her life keeps surfacing, and more facts, more understanding. So it's interesting how, as her spirit emerges, so does facts and documents. Recently, her father's home and his pipe was discovered, his little cabin in Maryland. Yeah, you can look on the New York Times. They found, like, these things are surfacing, more documents about her. So it feels like as her spirit rises, so does all this historical information suddenly being found in archives.
That is
It's
so
a
cool. I
mystery.
love that. It's proof of how
I think it's cool.
ancestor work works.
Yeah, when they want to be known, we find stuff, right? Suddenly there's a photo of our great 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 somebody in, on our bookshelf that we never saw before. And then, yeah, like the veils are thin right now.
Yeah.
Paper thin.
Thin
Those
as
who
paper.
are
I'm not going to forget that. If people want to connect with you or join you on one of your retreats, where should they go?
check out my website. It's just springwasham.com, and everything is there. All the links, all
Great
the
website.
passages.
We'll link it on the show notes, and we'll link it on our Facebook page as well. Spring, thank you so much. Such an honor
Thank
to have you on the
you.
show. And we hope you come back. We'd love to have you come back on.
Anytime. I really get this show, and I appreciate what you all are doing and sharing. And thank you for all your love and support.
Oh, thank
you.
you.
And thank you for stepping up. We need you. So thank you very much.
We're all doing what we can around here, I know, saying yes. Say yes.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. Thank you guys, everyone, for listening. Please remember to show up, do great work, and share your light. Have a great week.
Take care.